Story 1. That one guy that is really good at. Warlord Bazul Batork stirred in his massively drunken stupor at the Galactic Space Tavern bar. But why? I mean, what's the big problem? They's just humans. Those dense little bags of meat and dihydromonoxide held up by calcium, things. What's the really big deal about raiding them? The equally drunken warlord of the ravaged raiding species known only as Yo-Ho rose from his similar stupor. What? You mean you haven't seen it yet? Its razor-sharp eyebrow ridges clattered in his confused frown. See, there's this damnable thing. What's it called? Something like, there is always that one guy that is good at meme old on olden. It's a common stand-up comedy routine in my culture. Let me look one up, he stammered as he fished out a meta-socio tablet. Bazul Batork blinked in confusion. Comedy stand-up? What's the point of such a waste of time? Look, I can't claim to explain it, but it's something the humans taught us, that we tried out, and yeah, it actually works. How does it go now? Something like, comedy is the greatest critique, or something like that. I really lose all context when the human terms start using French words like that. Here we go. He propped up his tablet for both to watch. The Yo-Ho comedian was standing on a stage affecting a New York Seinfeld accent. Have you ever tried to raid in human settlement? What is up with that one guy? And how can such a small human colony happen to have so many? I know, what are you asking? What am I even talking about? Okay, so here we go. The raid on Baltrex 4B, of which I wasn't always a comedian, you know. The stage back display shifts to a tactical map. So, here we see, Baltrex 4B. We were infiltrating, using every stealth and cloaking device possible. But then, a flash arose from the colony surface, splattering every infiltrating the invasion fleet in electromagnetic eddy currents. Of course, there was that one guy that was really good with sensory anomalies, and his buddy, that was that one guy really good at pattern cogitation. They then excitedly buzzed that one guy that was tinkering with a side project to detect cloaking technology, and they called that other one guy that knew how to hack the GPS satellites to effect a signal blast. Within 2 minutes of actual time, we were detected, and a custom-made sensor ping was blasted out. We were busted. They had their warning, but we were too far committed. We grimly pressed forward with the raid. But there was that one guy that was really a crack shot with the anti-aircraft guns. That guy was a nightmarishly effective, how he could just Winchester gauge an orbital re-entry arc manually. We never did get his name to log in our eternal book of grudges. The audience crowd, who was before laughing joyfully, were starting to drift into uncomfortable silence. As the raid began, there was apparently that one guy that was really good at braziers. Bras? Oh, right. I meant booby traps. Raiders were dying far before ever even getting within range of the colony. We learned at great cost. If it looked like adequate cover, there was a bomb inside it. But finally, we got within engagement range of the colony, and it was all silent. There wasn't a human in sight, and everything was dark except for one corner of the colony, the violent criminal containment facility. Its lights were all on. Its gates were all wide open. We didn't think of the implications at the time. The comedian paused in the deathly silence of the club. Because, yeah, of course there was that one guy that was really good at murder, that one guy that was really good at terror. The comedian gulped in post-traumatic distress. The way our raiders were strung up as sickening puppets and artistic murals on the ruined and smoking raiding craft. How that one guy was quite so good at theatrical stagecraft and lighting. There was a long pause. And there was that one guy that thought of himself as the apex predator of the human meat on his world, and how he took such personal offense to our claim upon it, in his own backyard. I'm sorry, this got too intense. I don't think I can go. There was a clank of metal to metal with the RT of a serrated edge on serrated edge at the back of the comedy club as the lights blinked off and the screams began. Bazul Batork blinked in drunken surprise. So, what happened there? The Yo-Ho warlord blinked in surprise of his own. I don't know. I don't remember that episode. That's, The lights in the station tavern blinked off, and the tablet, seemingly also powered off, made that horrible key sound, loudly to echo across the tavern walls, quite so horribly. For there was also that one guy that was really good at hacking enemy social media and to instill terror into anyone who dared to mess with humans. Story 2. NursePrime. The human is waking up already. The NursePrime sat at her monitoring bubble in the Galactic Citizen Hospital station, a little nervous. It wasn't every cycle that the hospital performed surgery on an Earth human. This could become dangerous. The human was undergoing a cancer removal, a partial removal of his thyroid gland thing, for some reason in the neck part of the human form. It was all very odd to her. She had been doing a lot of studying in preparation for this procedure. As the NursePrime, she would be in charge of the human's recovery after the robotic autosurgery. The surgery had just finished, and the human was in her care now in the post-surgery ward. His general anesthesia should have him knocked out for a good 16 more hours, and she was to watch over him. Just as she was the most worried, thinking of the many ways a human could simply wreck the facility, one of the heart monitors in her ward started to beep an alarm. The beep gaps increasing in rate per second and in pitch. When the beeps got too fast, the heart monitor made long tones instead, though still rising in pitch. Oh, by the dark star, not already. This is too soon. It was the human patient, of course. His heart rate and blood pressure were spiking rapidly. He was waking up and his body was alarmed, angry. Now the heart monitor blared in police siren, we oh alarm. But the NursePrime didn't have time to look up what that particular alarm signified with regard to human heart monitors, because there was a bang heard through the wall. Sound of struggling. The NursePrime got up and raced into the ward to see two nurses struggling to hold the human down. The humans was definitely awake and definitely upset. The nurses were panicking, one on each human arm, but the human was very strong, throwing the nurses back repeatedly, ripping his arms from their grip, and slamming a tight grip of his own onto the hover gurney railings, trying to sit up. NursePrime stormed in and thundered with authority. Do not let him sit up. He could fall to the floor. The nurses rushed back in, grabbing the human arms and pulling them free of the rail to wrestle with the patient again. We are trying, but we need help here. This one is a fighter. The NursePrime gestured to two other nurses nearby. You two, get over here and hold his shoulders down. She glared at the nurses. What happened? As the four alien nurses finally held the human down, one of the nurses replied nervously, we just finished the extubation of his breathing tube thing and he just started to wake up. We thought he would be paralyzed for some time still, but he suddenly hissed in a deep breath and suddenly became motile. The young nurse was at a loss for words. I don't know how he... The NursePrime nodded. That would be the adrenaline, kiddo. We need to calm him down. Fast. As the human squirmed under the four sets of hands, his broad shoulders flexing and surging in waves of power, the NursePrime rushed up, placed a hand on the human shoulder and said in a commanding tone, Sir, you are in the hospital. You just got out of your surgery. We need you to calm down, lay back, and be calm. Do you understand? The humans paused in his struggles and turned his head a bit, as if finally making sense of his situation. Can't see, the human croaked with recently abused vocal cords, but he nodded, and with a final yank ripped his arms free again, and with shaking hands interlaced his fingers across his chest as he struggled to control his hissed breath through his teeth. "They were just taped shut, sir. You woke up just so early. Here, let me get those for you." As she peeled the tape off, the human visibly relaxed as he looked around. His heart rate had dropped noticeably already. "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" "Water," the human croaked. The NursePrime pulled up the human's procedure data. His surgery began only 3 hours ago. He should have been under general anesthesia for many more hours than this. He might have been aware of the surgery. No wonder he woke up fighting. "We need to talk to human doctors and anesthesiologists immediately." The human lay in his recovery bed, surrounded by human surgeons, anesthesiologists, and lawyers for some reason. They had all raced to the station on the highest authority jump gate clearance. "Greetings, Mr. Smith. Glad to see you are on an amazing recovery. Now, could you please tell us the very first thing you were aware of after going under for the procedure?" The human shook his head with a wry grin. "Honestly, it was just waking up here, not knowing where I was, unable to open my eyes with strange hands grabbing me. My head was a little fuzzy still, and it was only a half notion that I had been kidnapped or abducted again or something, not remembering I was here for surgery or anything." The other humans nodded with visible relief. That explained the fight instinct quite well, actually. The human continued, I assumed there was a tube down my throat getting pulled out. I missed even that, thank goodness." With that, the other humans nodded and wished the patient well, and left. The NursePrime was greatly relieved. Apparently nothing was done improperly. The patient was just an outlier of sort. Later in her shift, she was watching the video feeds of the patient's bed, just curious about human physiology. She knew the general anesthesia he was under was a strong one, with a paralytic that should have kept the human unconscious for at least 12 hours. She watched the video as one of the nurses extubated the plastic tube from the patient's mouth. No wonder he couldn't speak. Immediately after its removal, the patient's eyebrows drew together. His large jaw muscles clenched in visible cords, and his head slowly turned to the right, catching the nurse's attention. Oh, I think he's waking up," one of them said to the other as the heart monitor started to climb. "No way, it's too soon. He just got here," the other said. "Yeah, but he can't move yet, right?" The nurse said nervously, "This is a big one here." The other nurse was about to confirm that the patient couldn't move when suddenly the human sucked in a large breath suddenly, and all of his arms and legs lashed out, smashing into the side rails of a gurney. He grabbed the railings and tried to surge up to a sitting position. "Oh, Mo Darkstar, he's fully motile. How? Who? What do we do?" "Ping the NursePrime and grab him." The NursePrime turned off the video, already knowing the rest. She shook her horned head. She had heard that humans were terrifying when in war mode, and she didn't particularly care for this intimate demonstration firsthand on her home turf. That could have gone so much worse. She was relieved that the well-documented talking a human down procedure was also proven to be so effective as well.